Welcome to another episode of The Producing Half. Just normal, everyday working Americans trying to figure out the insanity of the world we live in. And trust me, it is an insane world. Today I want to talk about WWIII, World War III. And it's not the World War III you think, because we're already in World War III. And it is a war against you and me. It is a war against the individual. They hate you. Who is they? The people who want to be in power. The global elites. The World Economic Forum. The Davos. The Klaus Schwabs. The billionaires. They hate you. And you being the producers, the middle class, the people out there just doing it. They actually hate you. So it's World War III already started. It's a fifth generational war, and we'll get into that. But it's already started, and you're getting it from all sides. It's coming. It's a control because the war today is, yes, there is the whole Russia and Ukraine thing. That's just another thing to bring about. They have to destroy the middle class. And so all of this is about destroying the individual, and that's the middle class. The poor are a zombie horde. The left are a zombie horde. And I mean, I guess you could, when I say the poor, I mean the consumers, because I'm not rich, but the consumers out there, people who can't produce because they don't want to, they're a zombie horde. The left and these crazy, identitarians, these crazy people who think that they're dogs or think that boys are girls, whatever. All those people, they're another zombie horde. There's just zombie hordes out there, and then you got the mindless Democrats, another zombie horde. You got the mindless Republicans, another zombie horde. It's just all these zombie hordes, and they're all being weaponized to come against you, the individual, the producer, basically middle-class America. So there's World War III. It's a fifth generational war. And it's a war against you. It's a war against you and me. Or me and you. It's a good question. It's a war on the individual. And you're getting hit on everything. You're getting hit with the facts coming at you on TV. You have no idea. You're getting hit with fear of everything. You're getting hit the price of gas, the price of food. Getting you used to conditioning for scarcity. They're conditioning you for scarcity, and they've been doing that for a while. The supply chain crisis is on purpose. That's what you need to realize. I've been talking about it for 2 years, at least. The supply chain crisis is on purpose, and it's to get you conditioned for scarcity. They're hitting you with medical. They've weaponized pharmaceutical industry that's been weaponized to coming at you. Not only do they weaponize the diseases that get you sick, they weaponize the cures. The cures, in a lot of cases, is as bad as the disease. So they're hitting, and they're severe attacks on families. They're doing their best to destroy families. They're coming after. I mean, they've already destroyed. They already killed God. They're the nuclear family. They've gotten rid of that. They did that with welfare pretty fairly. I mean, you still have the middle class, and that's the problem. In the middle class, you can still have the dad working and the mom staying home and taking care of the children and building that foundation. But they destroy that. They attack your kids constantly with the social media and the YouTube and all the games and stuff that they do. So they're constantly attacking your children. All of this is to destroy you. It's to destroy the individual and the middle class. They have to get rid of the individual. And the middle class is made up of individuals. The rest of everything are, they're not individuals. They're a zombie horde. And they're fine with zombie hordes because zombie hordes are easily controlled. They're easily manipulated. Look at the flip of like the Occupy Wall Street kind of people, or the left, who has, for as long as I can remember, have been anti-government. Now they are fighting on the side of government. They are against. They are for the government and against you, the middle class. Nothing makes sense. It's all this fear mongering. Everything has been weaponized against the middle class. They are going to destroy you economically in the next 24 months. I just got my taxes in the mail, and that's a horrific bill on my home. They got to get rid of the middle class, and a lot of the middle class wealth is in your home. And if you can't afford to pay your taxes, you'll be forced to either lose your home or sell it, in which case BlackRock or one of the other big firms, Vanguard Group, will gobble up your home and turn it into a rental property. And then you no longer have that asset. So you're constantly being attacked. And you think you own your home in America. Stop paying your taxes and let me know how that works out for you. You don't own it. You're just renting it from different people. But still, there's always wealth. At least when you have a mortgage and you're owning a home, you're paying it off. Sure, you're still renting from the government, but you're still building wealth that you can be passed on to your children. That's how middle America, generally speaking, passes their wealth on to their children, is through their home. Well, they went gangbusters against that in this last year. They've done everything. It is so obvious that they are trying to destroy the middle class. So I wanted to talk a little bit about fifth generational warfare, which is what we're in. Let me do this. All right, this is fifth generational warfare from our trusty friends at the leftist organization Wikipedia. They are definitely not. You used to be able to go to Wikipedia and find, and you still can. You can still find fact-based stuff. Just stay away from anything that's possibly could be spun to help one side of the left-right argument. 5GW, fifth generational warfare, is a warfare that is conducted primarily through non-kinetic military action. In other words, it's not World War II tanks going at each other. But it's through such as social engineering, misinformation, cyber attacks, with also using artificial intelligence and autonomous systems. But it's also through medical warfare. They have weaponized pharmaceutical and health. It's a war for your mind. It's a war for your perception. It's a war against perception. It's the war against perception. And so that's what we're in. And so they're going to be hitting you with fear, and they're going to attack every aspect of it. And one of the things that's coming is a food shortage. A food shortage is coming. Now, we're not going to starve in America. The third world is going to starve, but in America, we're not going to starve. As a matter of fact, I have that stat on the third world right here. And so, world hunger. Wow. 10,000 children die daily from chronic poor nutrition. 99% of malnutrition. 99% of malnutritioned people are in undeveloped third world nations. 10% of the population suffers from hunger, compared to 24% in 1990. That was going the wrong direction for them. Remember that last video with that Yuri or whatever his name was, talking about all these useless people. It's going to be 24. It's going to be, by the end of whenever this fall harvest hits, and it is nothing like it should, it's going to be 30% by 2023, 40, 50%. Who knows where it stops? World hunger is on the rise. Asia has the most hungry people. Of course, sub-Saharan Africa. Females make up 60%. 40% of all death are children under 5. Children under 5. 800 million people, 11%, live on less than $1.90 a day. Think about inflation and think about food shortages. What does that billion people, basically, because this is underreported, and it's just going to grow. So let's just say it's 1 billion people live on $1.90 a day. Live on less than $1.90 a day. It's going to be bad. Children are mostly 60%. The kids, you're gonna have low IQ, low birth rates. It's gonna be horrific. I have this video I found today. I have no idea who this guy is, but he did a really good job of explaining it. I think I have it on. So he's going to be talking fast. Feel free to listen to whoever this clear value tax. I haven't listened to any of his other videos. I just saw this when I was Googling up, or actually I was braving. Brave is the search engine I use. I was braving? I don't know. We have to come up with a verb for using the Brave browser search engine. DuckDuckGo was never really a search engine. It was kind of a database queued at question databases. But whenever they started suppressing, they started filtering the Ukraine news, I completely stopped using. I even downloaded the Brave browser on my phone. So now I can use Brave on my phone instead of DuckDuckGo, which is what I've been using. So no more, it's DuckDuckGone. That's what I call it, DuckDuckGone. So we're going to watch this video. It says 11 minutes, but we're playing it at 1.5 speed. So pay attention because he talks fast at this speed.
Heard about the upcoming food shortage. The news is talking about it, social media is saying it, even President Biden said that the food shortages, they're going to be real. So I want to clarify the situation for you, and I want to explain to you what is going on.
Whenever the government is starting to say things, it's kind of like when the military starts showing off their technology, it's because it's old, they got something better. When the government starts talking about, when Biden starts saying there's going to be a food shortage, and that's bad for him, that's bad for the Democrats. They don't want negativity. When they start saying it, hold on. Again, in America, I don't think we're going to starve. Things are just going to be expensive. People are going to be poor. I think he says that too.
Going on. If they want to produce successfully, they need 3 things. 1, they need fertilizer. 2, they need diesel fuel. And 3, they need human labor.
Why is human labor short? It's short on purpose. Why is fertilizer? Well, fertilizer is Russian Ukraine, among other things. It was already at shortage, and so was diesel. This has all to do with the COVID, which is, again, the lockdowns were, again, part of this 5th generational warfare, this complete and total warfare on the individual.
Now take a wild guess. What is going on with those 3 categories? There's a fertilizer shortage, there's a diesel fuel shortage, and there's a labor shortage. There's also the war in Ukraine, and when you put all of that together, you end up with a food shortage. So let me cut the suspense. So I'm going to cut the suspense, and I don't want to be dramatic, so I'm just going to tell it to you. We're not going to have starving Americans. It's more likely that we're going to have a lot more broke Americans, and we're going to get into more of that at the end. So you need to know that the upcoming agricultural problems, they have not been baked into inflation yet, but it's coming. So if you think that...
So think about that. And first of all, the inflation numbers is 20-something%. No matter what they tell you, that's what it is. None of this is even factored in. Think about what it is and what it really is and what it's going to be.
If you think that grocery prices are bad right now, we have not seen anything yet. First and foremost, you need to be aware that fertilizer is so important for crops. So general estimates are that fertilizer, they increase crop yields by 40 to 50%. So here's the situation. Russia is the largest exporter of fertilizer. Belarus, so that's Russia's puppet state, so that's where the Ukrainian invasion was launched, they are number 6. So between the two of them, they make up approximately 18% of global fertilizer exports.
That doesn't sound like a lot, but see what 18%, well, what's that matter? Well, think about the percentage, 1 billion people living on $1 something a day. 1 billion people basically get just enough calories. 1 billion people get just enough calories to not die, basically, on Earth. And so if you have, I think he said 18% less fertilizer, that causes a 50% reduction in crop yields, think about the 1 billion people. Americans are going to get their food because we got all the resources. The first world is going to gobble up all the food. But think about, the percentage doesn't seem, but you got to talk about scale. And on scale, it's a huge deal.
Because of the war, there have been sanctions, there have been boycotts, and Russia refusing to export to unfriendly countries. Consequently, commercial fertilizer prices, they have doubled in the past year. According to the USDA, the cost of fertilizer makes up 36% of a farmer's operating cost for corn and 35% for wheat.
So, a third of your operating cost is fertilizer, and it is more than doubled. I've been seeing lots of reports of people paying 3 times, even 4 times. So farmers are planting, either not planting, and the government, by the way, is paying them not to plant, go figure, in a food shortage, or they're planting without fertilizer. 50% less yield that way.
So let me tell you how the farmers have been responding. And this is all across the world. So this is internationally. So Brazil, they are the largest exporter of soybeans. Brazil imports half of the fertilizer from Russia and Belarus. Brazilian farmers are saying that they're simply going to use less fertilizer. So this is expected to hurt crop yields. In America, a 5th-generation farmer in New Mexico, Mike Berry, he said he paid 232% above last year's prices for liquid nitrogen to fertilize his corn. Berry said that he's going to use 30% less nitrogen.
Not only that, so you just said corn. Think about what they just announced about allowing E85. They're going to try to push more E85 out there, which means more corn. I think it's a different type of corn that they use in ethanol, but they're going to be taking more of our corn and moving and using it towards a biofuel instead of food. But I do think it's a different type of corn. I don't think we eat that corn.
Which could drop his yields by 25%. Berry said, bottom line is that we're going to produce less. So many farmers around the world, they're simply deciding to plant less. So that's another alternative. In America, many farmers are saying the same thing. They're saying that they're going to cultivate less acreage. Others are saying that they're going to plant crops that require less fertilizer. A wheat farmer in Argentina said that he's deciding to reduce production by 30% this year by letting a portion of his land lay idle. So he decided to do this because the cost of fertilizer, he said, is just too high. Growers are looking to find alternatives. So this is one of many examples. In Zimbabwe, farmers are saying that they're going to substitute their typical fertilizer with manure. So the same thing, it's happening in America as well. Manure is in high demand right now as a substitute. This has triggered manure shortages, and there are even shortages for the equipment that spread manure. So as you can clearly see, this is going to be, this is problematic, and the situation is just going to get worse. So fertilizer, it's so important to maximize the output of wheat, corn, soy, and rice. But just to let you know, the prices that we're seeing at the grocery stores today, these are the prices that were already locked in with contracts. So these higher costs to the farmers and growers, it's going to trickle down to the consumers. So be prepared for that. Be prepared to see higher prices. Now let's talk about the price of fuel, specifically diesel fuel. So the price of oil, it spiked up, it came down, but it's still very expensive. The price of oil is expected to creep back up in the second half of 2022. This is important because most machinery runs on diesel fuel. Diesel, it's used heavily in farming. The California Farm Bureau says that on average, diesel fuel makes up 15% of a farm's expenses. So if you just think about this, the transportation industry, it relies heavily on diesel fuel to ship all crops. So you have the rising cost of diesel affecting every step along the food chain. So let me tell you this about oil prices. So I'm going to summarize this for you very briefly. For the past 10 years, the oil industry, they underinvested in exploration and production. With the COVID lockdowns, it made the situation even worse on the production side. Over the past 12 months, transportation demand has been spiking. So we have a structural underinvestment globally, more demand for oil internationally, and then you throw in Russia and Ukraine. But the situation, it's even worse for diesel fuel specifically because COVID-19, it hit diesel refining capacity the hardest. So this is why you see the price of regular unleaded gasoline 22 cents below their all-time highs, but diesel fuel is only 9 cents below their all-time highs. This is according to AAA. So new refining capacity is expected to come online in the Middle East, Asia, and West Africa for diesel fuel, but that's not going to happen until next year. Now moving on to workers. So I believe that we're all aware of the situation. So we all know that there's an employee shortage, and this is no different in the agricultural industry. American farmers, they're struggling to find enough labor to meet demand. And this situation, it's not unique just to America either. The same thing, it's happening, it's occurring in Europe. And COVID-19, it especially screwed up the situation for seasonal workers. So basically, there's a worker shortage. We don't need to go in depth on this side of the story because we've all heard this before. Now, on top of all these problems, you need to realize that Russia and Ukraine, they export a lot of food. Between Russia and Ukraine, they make up 30% of global wheat exports and 20% of corn exports. Ukraine and Russia, they account for 12% of all of the calories that the world consumes.
So think about that as well, in that, so you're having, the lack of fertilizer, but you're also losing 30% of the food, the global supply. Think about what that does to the billion people who just get enough food yesterday to survive.
So Russia and Ukraine, they're big players in the world's food supply. But this is all getting disrupted. The Russian army, they're all over the place. They're currently in the east and southern part of Ukraine. Ukraine says that they're going to cultivate 70% of their normal levels. So the number, it's not 100% because you have millions of Ukrainians displaced, supply chains not running properly, infrastructure blown up, and it's a challenging situation to farm if you have Russian soldiers shooting at you. Additionally, Russian soldiers, they've been stealing diesel fuel from tractors in Ukraine. So apparently this is one of their favorite things to do during their downtime. So what I'm trying to say here is that This is not what you would call a conducive environment for farming. You're not really setting yourself up for success in an environment like this. And just so you know, that 70% number, that's the land to be cultivated. So if you wait a few months, with all the tanks, soldiers, missiles, artillery, I mean, how much of the crop do you think is going to get disrupted, destroyed, abandoned, or never even harvested? So here's something else that you got to worry about. So this is something you have to take into consideration. If you want to export that crop from Ukraine most efficiently, then you're going to do it through the Black Sea. But the Russians, they're shooting at any vessels in the Black Sea. The Russians, they recently shot at 3 cargo ships from Panama. The Russians, they sunk one of the Panamanian ships. The other 2, they made it out alive, but they took damage. Insurance companies, they jacked up insurance rates 30-fold for ships going through the Black Sea routes. So that's another incentive to not run cargo ships through the Black Sea, along with the floating mines that the Russian Navy has set up. So Ukraine, they're trying to ship their crops by rail, but it's just not as economical, or in many instances, not logistically possible for many along the supply chain. So here's a quick recap for you. We're going to have less food coming out of Ukraine and Russia. Farmers, they're dealing with a shortage of fertilizer, record high diesel prices, and worker shortages. This is all going to mean less production. Less production of food is going to equal higher food prices. For lower income countries, this is going to mean food insecurity, riots, and worst case scenario is starvation. President Biden acknowledged the upcoming food shortage. He said at a G7 meeting with NATO leaders with regard to the food shortage, yes, it's going to be real. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said, we're not expecting a food shortage here at home, but we do anticipate that higher energy, fertilizer, wheat, and corn prices could impact the prices of growing and purchasing critical food supplies for countries around the world. Cecilia Roos, the chair of President Biden's Economic Council, said, we don't expect a food shortage here because we are net exporters, but we are acutely aware of the fact that there are regions in the world that depend heavily on exports. The United Nations, they issued a warning that food prices, they're going to increase another 22% in the next year. The former UN Undersecretary General said, billions of dollars in food aid will be required to avoid mass starvation in lower income countries.
And when you say food aid, think about what that does to the price of food when you have governments paying whatever for food.
So as I said in my opening remarks, you and me, we're going to see higher food prices at the grocery store. Yes, there will be food shortages, but we're going to be a little bit more insulated here in America, so I don't expect to see empty shelves. But that's the story behind what is going on and what's driving and causing all of this. So if you feel like you still want to stock up on food, by all means, please feel free to do so. I just hope that these videos, they help you stay informed, and I just want to say thank you for all the support, and I wish you a very nice day.
So I don't know who this guy is, but I like him. I definitely subscribed. I thought I did. Oh, I did it on my other thing. Subscribe. There, I'm subscribed. Yeah, I like this guy. He did a good job there. Yeah, it's a great. He did a great explanation on the upcoming food shortages that is going to come. Again, I don't think we're going to starve. They're going to get us used to scarcity. You're going to go to the store and you're probably food coupons are coming where you get this much meat per month, this much milk per month, or is it just not there in the store? That's coming, but I don't unless things get a lot worse than I think, than I anticipate. I always imagine the worst, but that I anticipate. Then we're not gonna starve. So it's gonna be really expensive, and you're gonna be eating a lot more basic things. Where did the world? I wanted to watch this Jim Cramer video. It was bizarre, to say the least. And you'll see what I'm saying. This is more and part of the whole. Nothing makes sense. They're getting hit by all sides. Jim Cramer, by the way, is a globalist shill. He's worthless. He totally 100% sell out, and not anybody you should pay attention to. And I think he kind of proves it here too.
Earnings do miss, revenues beat, first quarter profit down 42, driven by increased costs tied to bad loans and market upheaval caused by the war in Ukraine. Jamie Dimon strikes a note of caution in his remarks, says, quote, we remain optimistic on the economy, at least for the short term. Consumer and business balance sheets as well as consumer spending remain at healthy levels, but see significant geopolitical and economic challenges ahead due to high inflation, supply chain issues, and the war in Ukraine. Jim, you've been framing it as the credit reserves on one hand, the buyback on the other.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no doubt about it. When he buys back $30 billion, he believes. And that's long term. He's not going to buy it short term. But when you look at it, you say, oh my God, he was on the wrong end of the nickel trade. Holy cow, he's building reserves. $900 million. I thought that we weren't going to do that if the consumer.
I imagine he's talking about building reserves is that they're taking their cash and saving it for what's coming.
That strong and the 5% loans. So, David, I put it to you.
And he's talking about J.P. Morgan.
Put it to me? Well tell me. I'm right.
You're my partner.
Yes, I am. Always.
All right, Carl, I put it to you. No, come on. Everything was pretty good, especially, by the way, equities, which really shocked me. But he's talking his own stock down by talking about how
Broader
And they
the
can't even
challenges
fake
for
it
broader
at this point.
economy.
They can't even
Overall,
fake.
yeah.
gloom and doom.
But he does that. I mean, listen, one of the things we appreciate about Jamie Dimon is you do seem to get it fairly straight from him. And so there is that. The stock has never recovered from the last quarterly earnings where there was a lot of concern about expense. That is not going to be the case here, I don't believe, Jim, in terms of additional expense or expense coming in way above where the estimates have been. Obviously, a lot of that had already been reflected in perhaps estimates. And again, the stock price never fully recovering. They did add to loan loss provisions in a fairly significant way, perhaps as well, reflective of what Mr. Dimon
Loan loss provisions. In other words, they're padding the money they need to have for the bad loans.
was talking about on the call in terms of concerns about the overall economy.
But remember, what drove it down last time was he had to increase his spend on technology. This time, not really a focus. But if you think, this is, the way I would play it. Let's say I am a CEO of another bank. Well, I will be sure not to mention the long term.
Why wouldn't you want to mention the long term? Isn't it positive?
Because if you want your stock down, you just say, hey, listen, I'm worried about, he didn't mention Zelensky by name. He didn't talk about the lockdown in China. But I read that and I said, boy, is he worried about Ukraine. Oh, man, he's scared about China. And I didn't want to hear that. Because those things could get better or worse. They don't have to necessarily both get worse.
Right. Certainly, the reserve buildup is a change directionally from recent quarters. As Jim mentioned, trading was a beat. Investment banking, though, a bit of a miss.
Yes.
Mortgage demand is going to be a worry as affordability takes a hit. I don't know if you saw mortgage apps, but we got mortgage origination, the Bankers Association says, will probably be down by a third this year.
Yeah, and the refinance.
So you got what they're talking about is the fact that interest rates are going up rapidly. So you're driving more of the middle class out of the market. You drive the lower class completely out of the housing market, permanently put them as renters. But then you start driving the middle class out, or at least downsizing. But the pricing doesn't reflect that instantly because there's a shortage. So you end up with like stagflation, or you end up with inflation and a recession at the same time.
Finance is awful. Really awful. Down 60%. Now, I thought bright side was that decrease only 1.3% week to week, given the fact how fast rates are going up. But I find it quizzical that you can say that you should increase your loan loss reserves and at the same time say the consumer is very strong. But then I worry, and I think, David, did you know they were on the other side of the nickel trade?
No, I didn't.
Can you elaborate?
No, I wasn't aware of that. And so we can take that into account.
Who was on the nickel? Do you remember?
That entire exchange was bizarre. It was talked about cognitive dissonance. They don't even know how to spin this. They don't even know what to say at this point. It's just. He's had to have been given his marching orders and he can't even fake it. That is insanity. And so I don't know if you know about. To pivot quickly. This is all about the war on you and me. But think about World War I, World War II a little bit, and Vietnam War. In most wars, America is pushed into by the leadership in America on purpose. The Gulf of Tonkin, the Lusitania. Think about what Woodrow Wilson tried to do, because America wanted nothing to do with World War I, but Woodrow Wilson wanted to be in World War I, and so he told Germany that if you can't shoot our civilian ships. Well, then he takes a ship, fills it full of arms, does it multiple times, and puts a few people on it and calls it a civilian transport ship. Well, no, it was a military. And yeah, they sunk it, and so that's how we got into World War I. America was pushed into it on purpose, and so think about this: Finland to make decision on NATO entry in coming weeks. Well, where is Finland? Finland is on the border of Russia, which, if you were to look at Ukraine right here, was one of the things that Russia was really upset about, is Ukraine. It's just an escalation. It's all it is an escalation in the war. They want this war to happen. They want it to escalate. I go back and forth from thinking that Putin must be in on it. I mean, his decisions don't make sense, but he's way smarter than me. So I don't know. Finland and fellow Nordic state neighbor Sweden are close partners, but with NATO, but they are not part of NATO. So here's Norway. Norway actually borders Russia, and I mean Sweden's right across from Russia has a little city over here somewhere that they control, and they have Belarus, and now they're this part of Ukraine is going to be Russia, and then here's giant Russia, so huge. But I mean that's just an escalation. They're doing everything they can. I think everything they can to get us to ask. I saw a report today that from a French source that said that the French reporter who got back from Ukraine said that America is 100% controlling Ukraine in the war. Like they get their marching. Ukraine gets its marching orders from America. And then here's another one. Yeah, no, I don't want anything. It's from Newsmax. I don't really know that much about Newsmax, but it doesn't matter. Top U.S. official, U.S. NATO supply transports legitimate military targets. So you're fighting a war against somebody, and a country keeps sending advanced military tech to the people you're fighting the war with, and keeping them in the war instead of allowing you to defeat them. No matter what side you are, does that make? Would you allow that? If you're fighting some guy in a fist fight, and he keeps going over to right when you're about to beat him up, he goes over to his friend, and his friend shoots him up with some steroids, gives him an energy drink, puts an ammonia tab under his nose, and gives him a little massage, so he can get back in and keep fighting you. And while at the same time you're on your own. How long is it going to be before you push that guy out of the way and go hit and go attack the friend who keeps revigorating him? Well, it's the same thing here in Russia with NATO. We just constantly sending all these drones and I don't know if it was in this one if it says exactly what we're sending them. But I mean, they're sending all kinds of advanced. We're sending them helicopters. We're sending them. I don't know. It doesn't say. But we're sending them helicopters. We're sending them those drones. We're sending them a bunch of stuff. Here's another one. U.S. gives Ukraine $800 million more. Not just $800 million. $800 million more. So more than $2.5 billion. $2.5 billion includes artillery system, artillery rounds, armored personnel carriers, unmanned coastal defense boats. What? Unmanned coastal defense boats. Well, I want one of those. Why can't I get one of those? They're also sending them helicopters. They're sending them. This new package includes 11 Mi-17 helicopters that were going to go to Afghanistan, 40,000 rounds of artillery, 300 additional switchblade drones, howitzers. Man, I would like to have some. I'd like to have a howitzer. Wouldn't that be fun to have in your backyard, a howitzer? But we just $2.5 billion of your money. How much was your COVID relief check? $600? Huh. Well, $2.5 billion is just going away over to Ukraine. They don't care about you. And you know how many times Russia and Ukraine are always fighting each other and shooting each other? And you never cared before. Nobody ever cared before. This is just another angle of attack on you to bring about this war on the individual. That's all this is the war on the middle class. And so this fifth generational war, this new World War III we're in, is every nation is at war, but not with each other, but with its populace. Because as you saw from yesterday or the day before, or whenever I did the video where we played the video from that guy from Klaus Schwab, the Davos guy, the World Economic Forum guy, Yuri something or another. He's an Israeli, I believe. it's a war against y'all, and they control. He gives the marching orders to all the world leaders, so they all get the same marching orders. This is a war. Every nation's at war, World War III, but they're at war not only kind of with each other, but with their own populace to control the populace. They have to get rid of the individual. The individual is the most dangerous thing to them. Again, the zombie hordes of your populace are easy to control. It's that individual they got to come after. So I just wanted to do a quick video today talking about what World War III, that we're already in it, and what it really is. And it is so hard to stay in front of. I don't know what to buy and stock up on. I don't know what's going to be scarce tomorrow or the next day. I don't know how people are going to weather when I say people, I mean the people, not the rich. They'll be fine. And I'm not even necessarily the rich, but the upper class, the highest of the middle, maybe, really the lowest of the high. You know, the people making $500,000 or more a year are probably going to be okay. It's the people living on under $100,000 a year that are going to suffer. And you think, I mean, $150,000 a year is not a lot of money. $150,000 a year means you pay all your bills, probably have a car or two, have a house payment, maybe even a boat, and you can take a vacation. That's about $150,000 a year. Factor in taxes and everything else. Well, that was. Now $150,000 a year is like $100,000 a year, which means you're living, for a family of four, you're living very well check to check. You're still living check to check. You're just living very well. You have air conditioned, cable. If you want to go to the movies, you can go to the movies. You buy whatever you want at the grocery store without even worrying about pricing. That's about $100K a year for a family of four. You start getting below, because at $100K a year, family of four, you're taking home $60,000, $70,000, $60-something thousand is what you're taking home after all the deductions, after your healthcare deduction, your 401K deduction, after all your deductions. You're basically taking home, $60K a year. Ominous text. So, $100,000 a year is not that much. $50,000 a year, you're taking home maybe $40,000. Your tax bracket changes the less you make, but you're living paycheck to paycheck at $100,000 or less. It's just at what standard are you living? That's basically what it is. Because as you make more money, you're not generally going to save more until you get into a certain range. You're just going to up your standard of living. You make $20,000 a year, you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you're taking a bus and you don't know necessarily what you're going to eat next week. But as you make a little bit more money, you're just filling in one of those areas that made life not so fun. So now you have a little bit more food security, or now you're able to buy a car, or now you're able to get to a better apartment, or now you're able to get a newer car, now you're able to maybe buy a house. Now you're able to have, all the channels on your cable, and maybe get a better internet, maybe buy a little bit more new clothes. But you're not in a point yet where you're building wealth, because you're just upping your standard of living till you probably get to around $200K, and then now you've got a significant sum of funds. Unless you're ridiculous, you've got a significant sum of funds that you can start investing and building wealth with. But the $100K and below, it's paycheck to paycheck. And I know people out there listen to this, or people out there who are making, because no one listens, because I do no advertising whatsoever. It's really not for all y'all. It's just for my children. But people making $30,000 a year or $20,000 a year, look at somebody making $90,000 a year, a family of four. As an individual, that's a lot of money, but as a family of four, and think, man, they just have money, they can just do. No, you've upped your standard of living. They're still living paycheck to paycheck on $100K. It's just a different level of paycheck to paycheck. That's sometimes hard to understand until you've made that kind of money. until you understand how fast money goes in the tax brackets and how different things work. That 200K mark is when you can start saving and building wealth, because you've upped your standard of living. You still have a house payment, you still have car payments, but unless you start getting really ridiculous, your standard of living is where most people would want it to be. So now you have money left over that you're going to invest in things. After you've bought maybe for a year or two you're buying toys. After a while you've got your toys handled. Again, unless you have some expensive hobby, $200K a year is going to allow you to put away $30,000, $40,000 a year. Maybe it's $20,000 a year, but $20,000 a year invested ends up being real wealth, and not just in your home. And it also allows you to upgrade your home, which is going to build in better neighborhoods, which is going to build more wealth for your family. So that's all coming down. The 100K a year person is going to be living like the 40K a year person. That's what inflation does for you. So that's what's coming around the corner. I just wanted to give you that little perspective on it. Again, this is another episode of The Producing Half for producers, and good luck out there.